Good morning, everyone. I hope everyone can find a seat. Welcome to the June 2024 meeting of the House of Delegates. This is a hybrid meeting. We are joined by our colleagues virtually from across the state. Before we begin, please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I would like to remind you that this meeting is being recorded. The recording will be posted online and will be available to members of the association, members of the public, and the media. A reminder that materials are now posted to the House of Delegates webpage. Any supplemental materials that were submitted late have been posted to that page. If you've not already done so, please complete the attendance cards that are at your seats and turn them in to the staff at the registration desk at the end of the meeting. This is our procedure for taking attendance. For the remote attendees, attendance is recorded via Zoom, so ensure that your full name is displayed in Zoom so that your attendance can be properly recorded. I'd especially like to welcome the new members of the House of Delegates who took office on June 1st. Would those who are in attendance please rise to be acknowledged? Welcome, all of you. I would also like to remind our delegates who are participating via Zoom on the mechanics of remote participation in the meeting. First, for reports for which discussion and votes are required, please use the raise hand feature after the presentation of the report so that you are recognized should you wish to speak. Second, after discussion is completed, you'll be asked to complete a poll that will appear on your Zoom screen, and you will select aye or nay or abstain and then click submit. You will have 20 seconds to vote. The vote results will be displayed on your screen. Third, if you abstain, please send an email to Melissa O'Clair at moclair@nysba.org so that your abstention can be recorded in the minutes. If you're attending the meeting in person, please use the standing microphones should you wish to speak to a report. For any items which require a vote, the voice vote in the room will occur simultaneously with the launch and the closing of the online poll. Please note that there will be a short delay to allow the in-person and online votes to be tallied. For all delegates, both those participating remotely and those here in person, if selected to speak, as has been our practice, we ask that you follow these guidelines to promote an orderly discussion and debate. Delegates should identify themselves and their affiliations. Delegates should speak only once and limit their remarks to 3 minutes. If I notify you that your time has expired, please conclude your remarks. My comments are not a reflection on your position, but rather my responsibility to ensure that all members participate fairly in the discussion. Any questions to a presenter or otherwise should be directed to me as the chair of the House. Delegates should refrain from procedural motions until substantive discussion is completed. In this regard, a delegate may rise to speak to the motion on the floor and advise me that they intend to make a procedural motion at the appropriate time. I will recognize you to make that motion. All presenters and delegates rising to speak will be treated with collegiality and respect by all members of the House. We will now proceed with the meeting. The only other thing I would say is if you want to get engaged in a conversation with one of your colleagues, it may be distracting to the people around you, so take it to the back of the room or up to upstairs. And other than that, let's proceed. The first item is the approval of the minutes of the April 6, 2024 meeting. Unless there are any corrections, amendments, or objections, the minutes of the April 6, 2024 meeting will be accepted as distributed. Seeing no objections, those are accepted. The next item is from the Association Treasurer, Susan Harper, who will now present the report of the Treasurer. Susan is participating virtually, and congratulations to Susan on your daughter's graduation.
Can you all hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, I'm terribly sorry. I was waiting for something to pop up on the screen. Good morning, all. It's a pleasure to be with you here today as your New York State Bar Treasurer. Welcome to our new and returning delegates. And I would like to take this moment also to congratulate Kathleen on kicking off her first meeting of the House of Delegates. I apologize for not being there with you today. As Kathleen has mentioned, it's for good reason. As some of you may know, my daughter graduated from high school in the beginning of the pandemic, and like many families, did not have the opportunity to have celebrations. And so now that she graduated college, today we are having a big family celebration for recognizing those that have been lost. So today I will report on our 2023 Form 990, our financial operations as of April 30th, 2024. Again, I'm going to just reiterate April 30th, 2024, and the timeline and changes for our 2025 budget. Next slide, please. So the good news is, along with our clean audit that I reported on in April, New York State Bar's 2023 tax form has been reviewed and filed on time. There are no issues to report with our tax preparation, and I want to thank Chris O'Brien and Omira in our finance department for all their hard work on this and to moving it along. Next slide, please. We are now going to move on to the association's revenues. As of April 30th, the association's revenues are $315,000 lower than last year at this point, and expenses are $802,000 high. Overall, New York State Bar is in a great financial position. Our reserves are performing well, and we are not funding any operations using long-term reserves. On the next slide, please. We are now going to be moving to membership and CLEs due, comparing April 2023 to April 2024. Membership dues decline make up 87% of the total decline from 2023. As of April 2024, we are behind $273,000 of last year's numbers. And the New York State Bar's membership department is working with our marketing to produce campaigns to regain some of those lost members. As of May, we are $246,000 behind the year before, and sections just $17,000 behind. So we are making some gains there. Our CLE is slightly behind last year by $30,000. Next slide, please. I do want to point out this next slide, which is an important slide for us to think about. This year is our 10-year look at our membership's dues reviews. As we all have known, membership dues have been declining over the years. This chart on the screen shows an average of a 3% decline over the last 10 years. I am excited to share that our new membership subscription model is about to launch in the fall, and the hope that this will stop the decline and boost our membership income by gaining and attracting new members. New York State Bar is using an outside marketing firm to target and attract and convert lawyers across the country to being New York State Bar members. And with this new model, our members will enjoy more benefits, complimentary live CLE program, complimentary access to digital publications and forms, and additional partner benefits. I ask that you too use your voice and speak to your colleagues about your New York State Bar experience and the wonderful opportunities to get involved as being a member of our community, the benefits, leadership, and to come join us. So now I'm going to move on to the next slide, which is our building renovations. The building renovations at One Elk are proceeding on time and on budget. We are about halfway through the project and we spent about $2.7 million on upgrading our heating, ventilation, and cooling systems that are over 30 years old. We have upgraded and increased accessibility on our bathrooms and added an accessible lift for access to our Great Hall, which I really love. I love seeing people use that. The renovations are being made in segments and staff is relocating in other parts of the building during this period of displacement. We are working closely with our contractors to keep our expenses within budget and to have the project completed during the fall of this year. And once again, I want to thank Dave Miranda and our finance committee and our finance department for all of their hard work and their efforts to keeping us on track and within our budget. We're now going to move to the next slide, which now takes me to our budget for 2025. Our season is now kicked off. Emails with historic data were sent to all the sections on May 22nd. Committees are getting copies this month too. As a reminder, completed budgets are due on August 2nd. Please meet with your committees and section officers to remind them and discuss your 2025 needs. It's important that we take the time to produce realistic budgets and to also submit them on time. This year, association committees and sections will also be receiving event forms to fill out in connection with your programs. Further, I want to underscore working on sponsorship ahead of time if your sections have destination meetings. While we see improvement by some sections, we'd like to close any financial gaps from destination meetings. And we see those that are most successful are the sections that obtain sponsorship. And if you are a section that may be having problems gaining any sponsorship, the New York State Bar does have a source that may be able to help you. So please reach out to us. As I mentioned earlier, New York State Bar will be implementing a new membership model, and budgets produced and submitted on time and early should help us achieve better outcomes and just help our staff stay on track themselves. So this concludes my presentation for today. And if you have any questions or comments, I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Susan. Are there any questions? Two online hands are raised, so Linda? Linda, go ahead. Linda has thought better of it. Next, Anastasia.
I'm here.
Okay.
I'm here. Sorry.
Great, thank you. Go ahead.
I didn't have anything to say.
Okay,
Sorry. Did I push a raise hand? I didn't mean to. Sorry.
no, that's okay. All right. Thank you, Susan. We received the report with the thanks of the House.
Thank you very much.
Next is the report of the President. President Napoletano.
Okay. I would be totally remiss if I told you that never in my wildest dreams, talking about our esteemed past president, Vince Bizarre's comment last night about Dick's wife and her wildest dreams, but for those of you who were there, and I'm sure you heard it, but I'm going to be perfectly blunt with you. There was no way on earth that I could ever have imagined to have been given the privilege to stand here before you and to address you as the 127th president of this association. It was my distinct honor and privilege to have my longtime friend, mentor, the former presiding justice of the Appellate Division, 2nd, 11th, and 13th Judicial District, Michael L. Pesci, swear me in as president this past Tuesday at an event that we had in my hometown, Brooklyn, New York. Some of you who are here were there, and I'm very happy to have had you there. Sorry that all of you couldn't be there for various reasons. I want to acknowledge, because it's important that we do so, my immediate past president, Richard Lewis, for I want to thank him personally for his guidance towards my year as his president-elect, but more importantly, for his guidance and outstanding leadership to this association. Richard accomplished more than numerous things during his year. I think I'm going to perhaps pale in comparison, but I'm going to try to do my best, buddy. But thank you for your leadership, sir. Looking ahead, I want to also acknowledge our new leadership team. President-elect Kathleen Sweet, who is chairing this House. Returning Secretary Taya Grays, who keeps us all in order. And our returning treasurer, from whom you just heard, Susan Harper. Now, Dick thought he was getting off easy by ending his term, but unfortunately, it's not over. As we all know, the immediate past president still has the distinct privilege of still serving on the executive committee. So Dick, as the immediate past president, sir, I welcome you there. Of course, none of the things that I've accomplished or will accomplish, comes easy, and it certainly is not a one-man show. I mentioned this at my installation the other night. All of the things, and I guess this may be true for all of us, but I'll speak for myself. All of the things that each of us accomplish in life is not a singular act. It's something that is a collaboration with others. And so with that said, the things that I plan to hopefully accomplish during my year cannot be a singular act. And so let me just outline a few of those things, because we do have a heavy agenda, and I promised Kathleen that I would shut up as quickly as I stood up. I want to incorporate in all of the things that I plan each and every member of this association. I don't think that it is necessary for us, this is my personal take, I don't think that it's necessary for us to eliminate people by creating task forces or working groups. I want to invigorate every section and every committee of this august organization to become active participants in various tasks. So let me just outline a few. The CPLR has not been looked at since probably 1962. It's long overdue. I've spoken to its current chairs, Judge Billings and Tom Weingrad, and they are on board to doing a deep dive into what needs to be cleaned up in the CPLR. That's not going to be something that's going to be done in 1 year. It would be insane to think so. It's going to be a long-term project, but we have to start somewhere. And so I would like to at least start at the very beginning with that. I want to take that idea and transfer it over to the criminal procedure law and see what we can do there. And there are many changes in both of those two very big bodies of law that need to be looked at and cleaned up, and things that have happened become incorporated. I've been hearing over time from various judges, mostly from the downstate area, Brooklyn again, my hometown, Long Island, Richmond County, was here en masse, my friends from Staten Island. See, I did give you guys a shout out. I was told I should, and I did, but I would have anyway. The Article 81 guardianship provisions really have some issues in terms of attorney compensation, in terms of accountability of both guardians and even those who oversee the guardians, court evaluators and, sorry, the court examiners. Sometimes things go years and years and years without any accountability of what a guardian is doing for his ward or her ward. So I want to take a look at that. You'll hear this morning about, well, I think it was for informational purposes only yesterday at the Executive Committee, Surrogates Court Procedure Act 17A, which is also something that we're going to try to blend into the Article 81 project that I have in mind. And with that, I plan on speaking to the people at the family law section because I was made aware of a very serious situation concerning children of special needs, those who are autistic, when it comes to visitation and custody issues that our matrimonial justices, have to decide. Won't get into the specifics, but those are some of the things that we want to try to pull together. Lastly, as a senior lawyer, yes, I am over 50 years old. Kate is looking at me with these eyes of hers, which are beautiful, but she's not throwing daggers at me. Trust me, she's not. I have heard, and I know someone who has experienced discrimination in hiring. The way some firms fashion their advertisements for hire, you really take a deep look at them, they are exclusive of only certain individuals. And those individuals happen to be younger practicing attorneys than senior, more experienced attorneys. So I think it's time that we kept some accountability. So those are a few things. I have one major project that I'm going to really lean on Justice Kennedy, who's here, to help me out with. And I know she has some things that she wants to talk to me about, and we will, maybe even later today. But there are things that we need to maybe work together on, and I'm sure that we will be able to, as we have developed, thanks to Richard and his predecessors, a great working relationship with our chief judge and with the administrative body of OCA. So I hope to be able to continue that relationship because it's important that the bar and the bench work together collaboratively to do what is the best for our members. So that is my mission. My mission is to do all that I can to assist our members, all of you and all of those who aren't here, who make up this wonderful body of an association of the New York State Bar. Thank you for your attention. I promise that I will not stand up again to say another word. Enjoy the rest of the meeting. Kathleen, turn it over to you.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for President Napoletano? The next thing we're going to see is the swearing in proceedings for our new president.
Domenick, repeat after me. I do solemnly affirm. I do solemnly affirm that I will support the Constitution, I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the United States. I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of the president and will duly discharge the office of the president of the New York State Bar Association, New York State Bar Association, in accordance with the association bylaws. Accordance with the association bylaws, to the best of my ability, to the best of my ability.
Congratulations again. That was a really special evening. Our next item is the report of the Task Force on Homelessness and the Law. David Woll will present an informational report, and he is participating and presenting virtually.
Yes, hello, everybody. I'm David Woll, and I'm presenting in lieu of Bill Russell, who's the chair of the task force. He regrets that he wasn't able to attend today due to a longstanding family commitment. So he asked me to pinch hit and give a brief overview of what the task force has been up to. The task force was appointed by Richard Lewis in June of 2023. And I know that the issue of homelessness is an issue of great personal importance to Dick. One of the things that he very much wanted to do during his tenure was to put together subject matter experts to develop legal policies and to come up with strategies to improve this really dire situation that affects not only New York State, but really every state in the country. The task force's mission statement is up on the screen. And as it says, our mission was to examine the causes and effects of the homelessness crisis, including but not limited to the way in which that crisis is affected by the criminal justice and healthcare systems, with focus on the legal and policy considerations in New York State. The task force has been exploring ways in which the federal, state, and local government can take concrete steps to reduce the number of individuals experiencing homelessness and to improve the lives of individuals who continue to experience homelessness. Next slide, please. So as I think everybody recognizes, the scope of this crisis is enormous and unfortunately is getting larger, not smaller. There's an estimated 90,000 individuals experiencing homelessness in New York State. And that number actually is a significant undercount given the way that the numbers are calculated and the difficulty in identifying people who are experiencing homelessness who are either couch surfing with friends or family or even sleeping in automobiles. So unfortunately, the number is much larger than the 90,000. And that also doesn't account for the very large number of individuals and families that are housing insecure, that are on the verge of homelessness due to a variety of different factors. This is obviously not just an urban problem. You can see homelessness manifested in every place you go in New York. There's a significant homeless population in our suburban and rural communities. And in some ways, those issues and challenges are even more severe due to the dearth of services available in some areas of the state. Next slide, please. So there are many causes, contributing factors when it comes to homelessness. Mental health issues and drug addiction are certainly factors, but they are by no means exclusive or even the predominant factors. And as I've listed on the slide here, several of the other contributing factors, and I think first on the list really is a lack of affordable housing stock. There's a significant shortage of affordable housing in New York. And there are also a number of barriers to entry into affordable housing that does exist. A further problem is that wages are not keeping up with the increasing housing costs. As I think everybody knows, rental prices have increased significantly in the last few years. And of course, unemployment or a job loss certainly can contribute to homelessness, as can the lack of affordable health care. Or health issues can lead to job loss and then the carry-on effect, again, of homelessness. Certainly, domestic violence is a contributing factor in many cases where victims are being driven from the homes where they reside. So, as I said, there are a number of factors that contribute, and frequently it's not the result of substance abuse or mental illness alone. So the task force is looking at a variety of different issues and relying on the expertise of individuals in a variety of disciplines in trying to conduct an analysis that will develop concrete recommendations. Dick and Bill Russell put together, Dick asked Bill Russell to chair the task force, and they put together the task force members who are advisors with significant and varied experience and expertise in the area. The task force represents the geographic diversity of the entire state. There's representation from pretty much every general region of the state, all the large cities, as well as suburban and rural communities. Members of the task force include current and former municipal government employees, academics with relevant research and practical experience, as well as teaching experience, a representative of legal services organizations and other nonprofits who address homelessness issues on a daily basis, lawyers in private practice, retired judges, and also some former members of the law enforcement community. And the task force has also been assisted by representatives of New York's Continuum of Care network, who are serving as advisors to the task force. As some of you may know, the Continuum of Care network is a program that was established by HUD to coordinate the provision of services to individuals and families experiencing homelessness. And these COC representatives collectively have decades of experience addressing the needs of New York's homeless population, and they have provided valuable assistance to the task force thus far. Next slide, please. So we've organized ourselves into subcommittees, and each subcommittee is responsible for a particular area and generating a report on that subject area, with the goal of merging all the reports together into one unified report, along with recommendations that we intend to present to the executive committee and the House of Delegates for the fall meeting for approval. And we have a list of the subcommittees up on the slide. We're addressing the nature and the scope of the crisis, existing resources devoted to homelessness issues, the lack of sufficient housing, which, as I mentioned before, is an enormous issue, barriers to entry into existing housing, homelessness and the healthcare system, in light of the fact, or in light of the growing recognition that housing is healthcare, and that housing insecure or homeless people experience much worse health outcomes than people who do not have those, who are not confronting those problems. Homelessness in the criminal justice and parole system. Homelessness in the broader court system, which is looking at issues such as legal representation and the right to counsel, and also eviction diversion programs, such as those that have been adopted in other states. A subcommittee addressing the issues and consequences confronted by families with children, including the many negative impacts that homelessness has on children in terms of their health and education. A subcommittee on veterans and the issues confronting them in terms of homelessness, and then a subcommittee that's focused on the crisis and issues particular to rural areas and populations in the state. Next slide, please. So as I said, there are a number of people on the task force that have subject matter expertise, but we're not just relying on that. We have had a number of outside speakers address the task force and the individual subcommittees to provide additional information and guidance. For example, we've spoken to the former acting commissioner of the New York City Division of Homelessness Services. We've spoken to the former New York City Commissioner of the Department of Social Services. We've spoken to current law enforcement representatives from outside New York City. And we've spoken to many leaders of not-for-profit organizations who are addressing homelessness and housing insecurity issues on a daily basis. Next slide, please. So we've listed here some potential recommendations. These are preliminary, they're not the final recommendations, and the final recommendations will be contained in the final report, but we wanted to give folks an idea of some of the things that we've been thinking about. So as you can see on this list, we have potential recommendations addressing the significant gap between public assistance rent subsidies and the actual cost of housing. Those subsidies don't come close in many cases to covering market rents. Increasing the availability of housing vouchers and subsidized housing. Increasing access to supportive housing for those who need it. Increasing enforcement of laws that prevent landlords from discriminating against potential tenants based on their source of income, i.e. tenants who are relying on vouchers or subsidies to pay their rent. Increasing the number of shelters that provide services to victims of domestic violence. In some areas of the state, there's a real shortage of such shelters. Despite a very substantial need. Eliminating or reducing the practice of discharging individuals from state prisons directly into shelters. Expanding access to housing resources for veterans and streamlining and simplifying the process of applying for veterans benefits. And then, as I mentioned earlier, strengthening tenant protections, including expanding the right to counsel and eviction proceedings, and encouraging the use of eviction diversion programs like mandatory mediation. And again, that's a partial preliminary list. The goal is to present final recommendations in the final report, hopefully obtain approval from the House of Delegates and the Executive Committee so that we can share those recommendations with the Governor's Office, members of the Senate and Assembly, and representatives of local government. Next slide, please. So here's just a list of the task force members. It might be a little hard to read with the small print, but it's a varied group and a very talented and dedicated group. The subcommittees have largely but not entirely completed their work on the reports. And as I said, we're in the process of merging those different sections into a single unified report for presentation in the fall. And that's the presentation. So thank you very much for your attention. Let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you very much for your good work.
Thank you.
Are there any questions? There's some folks in the back that are not hearing.
There we go, right? Thank you. Good morning. My name is Helena Heath. I'm an out-of-state delegate for the House, appointed by the president. I have a question about the recommendation involving individuals going, reducing the number of individuals coming out of prisons. I think was one of the listed recommendations, reducing the number of inmates going to shelters. What would be some of the alternate places, if that's been thought about in terms of instead of shelters, it would be, just curious, what else are some of the options to help with that transition period of reentry?
Right. Well, I think the idea is very much what you said is to assist in reentry without basically depositing people directly into shelters and providing supportive services before they enter the shelter system, because the statistics are such that once people are in the shelter system, they stay there for a very long time at enormous government expense. So if we can divert those individuals by intervening with, assistance once they're released before they enter the shelter system, we think the result would be far more efficient and economical.
Very good. And just if I have a quick follow-up question, Madam
Yeah.
Chair?
Yeah.
Okay, and Mr. Chair, just in terms of my, I figured I earned my keep here, I live in DC. There is pretty much a rule across the board that any new construction housing has to have a certain percentage of affordable housing options. I'm not as deeply involved or informed about the exact percentage, but is that something that either New York State, I don't think New York State probably has that same, or can't necessarily put that in place in the same manner, but is that at all in the chopping block, so to speak, in terms of what some of the ways are to get at? Because the bottom line is we need more housing, we're going to need more construction, right? So that there is actually a requirement that there has to be a certain set aside number of affordable housing units in each new construction.
Yes, so
Thank you.
I'm not an expert on those requirements, but it's my understanding that there are such requirements in some areas, in some communities, some parts of the state, but not all. And one of the challenges that we've seen is determining what affordable housing is, because some of those regulations that require affordable housing do not actually provide for housing that's affordable at the level that a lot of the people experiencing homelessness or at risk of homelessness, can afford. So deeply affordable housing is really really at a shortage.
Thank you. Past President Buzard.
Thank you. Yes, Vince Bizard from Rochester, past president. Since our area of expertise is as lawyers, I think the task force is a great idea, but I hope, to what extent are you focusing on how the laws may increase homelessness or can be used to help decrease homelessness? I know that there are some laws involved, but is there focus on the legal aspects of homelessness?
Yes, a big part of our work is looking at the court system, eviction proceedings, ways to, reduce the number of evictions, increase legal representation, which won't surprise anybody, dramatically decreases the chances of eviction, and also that diversion program I mentioned earlier, just as an example.
Very good. Well, that's the kind of thing that we should be focused on. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
We have an online question. Marcella?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
I have a question regarding whether the task force has looked into the dysfunctionality of the city voucher programs, such as city FEPs. For example, there was, I think, one day where 58 eviction proceedings were commenced in the same day, not because the low-income tenants hadn't paid their rent, but in fact, because the city voucher hadn't paid. And personally, as a landlord, I've experienced this. So while ideologically, I'm very sympathetic to making sure that, tenants aren't discriminated against based on their source of income, there is a reality here that if the city is not paying the vouchers, it's very difficult to then say to landlords, you can't discriminate against this voucher, knowing full well that it's probably not going to pay you.
Yes, so inefficiencies in programs like the city FEPs is definitely something that the task force is looking at and will be part of the part of our consideration in coming up with recommendations. And I definitely take your point vis-a-vis the landlords. There are unfortunately inefficiencies in many aspects of the services and the bureaucracy that provide them, which we hope to come up with some helpful recommendations to fix.
Thank you. Thank you again for your report and for your good work.
Thank you.
Next, we'll hear the report and recommendations of the Task Force on Emerging Digital Finance and Currency. Co-chairs of the task force are Jacqueline Drohan and Matthew Feinberg. Yesterday at its meeting, the executive committee voted to table the report's recommendations, and therefore the task force is providing an informational report only.
Good morning, everybody. My name's, if you don't know me, my name's Matt Feinberg. I'm a litigator. I work at Goldberg Segala, based out of White Plains. Was fortunate enough to be nominated as a co-chair of this task force. And it's a pleasure to be here today to explain to you, while we're not proceeding with our recommendations, the report, the informal recommendations to see where we may be going, because there's a lot of information in this report, and we want to make sure that everybody has enough time to think about it and to come back to us with questions, because there's a lot here. And if you don't have a foundation of the law, it's even worse. So we welcome feedback, and over the next few months before the fall meeting, I'm hoping to get a lot of feedback from as many of you as possible so we can work together and put some solid recommendations together. Can we pull up the slides? There we go. Okay, there are some slides. The slides were created by past President Cheryl Wallach, who also created this task force. I'm joined here by my co-chair, Jackie Drohan, who's really the leader here, and I'm just lucky that I have her to bounce ideas off of. And with this, I guess we could go to our next slide. Here are our members. Before I discuss the members, we have just created subcommittees on legislation, regulation, criminal justice, intellectual property, and ethics and education. And all of those groups, subcommittees, put together information which we put into our informal now information-only report. And here's the list. We have members, small firms, large firms, ex-prosecutors, ex-regulators. So it's a diverse group of attorneys that really show us, get a good taste of the diversity that this association has. And we have had consultants as well. We've been fortunate enough to have law student members who have really been wonderful in helping us with the report. And there's such a demand amongst law students and newer attorneys for this field. And that's one of the things we talk about in the report, what New York law schools are doing and the amount of programs that they have for emerging technology and emerging digital finance. So it's an exciting time, especially for them, and that means hopefully new membership. Next slide, please. So the rapid growth of this area, metaverse, whatever you want to call it, presents a confluence of issues for lawyers. At the same time, the tech has the power to change the way we do business, interact personally and professionally. And it's important that us as attorneys and us as the New York State Bar Association, which is the gold standard of bar associations, to be out in front of this issue, be proactive as opposed to being reactive, because that way as attorneys, we can help our clients. Next slide, please. As we've learned over time, technology has the power to really equalize things and to be able to create access to justice. And this is something that can be obtained through digital currency and other methods. But what we've done as part of the task force has been to look at ways that digital finance can help access to justice, help underserved communities, and really move forward and move the needle in terms of the legal community providing adequate guidance for clients and advancing their interest. Next slide, please. Our mission is to study and evaluate the legal issues and questions surrounding the expansion and regulation of digital finance and the digital currency industries in New York State. This included development of best practices for attorneys representing clients in these matters, and proposal of law and policy recommendations as to the relevant regulatory bodies. During the time that the task force was formed in 2022, we've met with members of Senator Gillibrand's office, New York State Attorney General's office, when they put forward a proposed bill. We've also met with New York State Majority Counsel's office. So they are really open to hearing the feedback from the bar, because the bar is not big business. And that's unfortunately what a lot of the lobbying efforts are. So they really understand and appreciate lawyers who want to advocate on behalf of their clients. And they are very interested in it. And it's been really great. So we hope to continue that. Next slide, please. Yeah, this is just a slide kind of trying to explain to you what Web3 is. And I suspect a lot of you have no idea, and you might have questions. Some of those answers could be found in the report. But essentially, when you're looking at Web3, it's a really open source, decentralized form of the internet. The description of it is in the report. If you have any questions, please reach out. I'm happy to answer any. And next slide, please. So, after the pandemic especially, it's really amplified technology and how we use technology in the practice of law. And it's important for the legal community to be out in front of that. As lawyers, we have a duty to be kept abreast of technology. That's a fact. So we can't stick our heads in the sand and say, this isn't going to happen to me. I don't know anything about this. My practice doesn't include this. We can't. And a lot of times I've explained to people, you may think you have no interest in crypto or digital currency, but if you practice matrimonial law, trust in estates, possibly guardianship, your clients are going to come to you and they're going to say, I just got this stuff. What do I do? Do I pay taxes? What do I do? And as a lawyer, you have to advocate, you have to represent your clients. So we have to stay out in front of this stuff. And right here on the slide, it was an avatar that we did of Sherry at one of our CLEs. We've had multiple CLEs and conferences. We've had international speakers, as well as prosecutors, assistant USAs. So it's been really wonderful to educate the bar and to see the attorneys that are coming to learn more about this. And it's very invigorating. Next slide, please. This is a slide kind of about, what the metaverse is and some of the legal issues that can arise. I would recommend taking a look at the report and kind of learning more about this stuff, because if you're not familiar with it, it can be a bit overwhelming and a bit confusing. But essentially, it's a combination of technology in a way that we'll all have equal access to technology and digital currency. And along with that, we'll need to have lawyers. Next slide, please. We need to learn and be aware of as to how emerging tech impacts the law. Not limited to digital currency, that's also important with artificial intelligence. What can lawyers do to best represent their clients? That's obviously something that we need to be out in front of. And observing this technology as it changes, because your clients, you have clients, they're going to come up, they're going to have these issues, it's likely to arise, and it's better to be proactive as opposed to reactive. This is just an example of some of the tools, blockchain and such. Again, it's in the report, a description of what this stuff is. It's 123 pages, so it might be a lot. Please, if you have any questions, please let us know. Next slide, please. Here are just some of the events that we've had. We have had 2 CLEs, international symposiums, where we've had partnerships from all over the world. Speakers come from all over the world to discuss this, because digital currency is really cross-border issue. It's not limited to a state, certainly. It's not limited to the United States, and it impacts us globally. So we wanted to get a good sample size of global leaders to come and talk and give CLE. And we've had member turnout and we had great CLEs. We also have been, we had a community zone at NFT NYC, which is just a local event in New York City, where we're able to discuss what we've been doing as a task force and, spread the word. Next slide. This might be it. One left, right? So the recommendations, as we mentioned, the recommendations have been tabled for the fall. What we'd like to do now is form a standing committee and get new members to come in, because one of the things that I've had to deal with is people saying, how do I become a member of this task force? And it was kind of a smaller group of people. So we want to be able to form a committee, get interested people to come in and really hash it out. And these recommendations are probably going to be the same ones. There may be some changes, but generally we want to create a better way, a committee, a better way to provide resources, because sometimes there's a lot of duplicativeness in terms of CLEs, and we want to be able to combine resources and use the resources of this association. We have fantastic sections and committees, and we need to work together. Other things such as dispute resolution and enforcement, using emerging tech for member benefits, which will hopefully increase membership. You know, we were looking at the IRS and Treasury providing more clear guidance in terms of what taxpayers have to do in this area, because that's a hot issue. International cooperation and harmonization, I mentioned that. That's super important. This is a worldwide thing, so we need to have partnerships across the world. And we need to continue to look at how we can use emerging tech, emerging digital currencies to help enhance the criminal justice system. As a former legal aid lawyer, I always want to do whatever I can to, you know, to help indigent clients. And if there's a way that we can make the criminal justice system more efficient with emerging digital finance, it's worth it to study, in my opinion. So would you like to?
Yeah, so I appreciate that, man. And I'll be speaking a bit later, so I'm conscious of not trying to exhaust you, but and to reserve some time for questions. So I think we'll reserve the rest of the slides. Speaking just briefly on what happened yesterday, the executive committee, our esteemed president, appointed us as a committee, which we are excited about, and that'll allow us to refine these resolutions. We've had a lot of contributions to them. There are collaboration. The tax people particularly gave some great contributions to the thought leadership that's involved here. But a lot of other sections as well, like the international reviewed it. And we will be back with these, with a refined report and further recommendations. It's been such a moving target, as we said. Even last week, there were congressional moves to regulate cryptocurrencies. Nationally, there was a presidential veto of one of those. And we just realized we really just had to, it was just risky just to create a snapshot and to say, please move on this. But I'd love to reserve the rest of the time for questions. Hopefully there'll be a few. And I am under the presidential instruction to keep it short. So.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you for this incredible report. For the information of the House, the executive committee yesterday did approve the formation of a standing committee for this, this group. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Are there any questions? Any online? Thank you very much for all of your work.
Thank you, everybody.
Bear with me as I flip the 130 some odd page report. Next is the report of the Committee on Disability Rights. Jennifer Monthi will present an informational report, Guardianship for People with Developmental Disabilities, Examination and Reform of Surrogates Court Procedure Act, Article 17A, is a constitutional imperative. And Jennifer is joining us virtually. Ahead of time that they're not ready for us. Okay. If anybody wants to stand up, turn around, stretch your legs, talk to your friends for a few minutes, now would be a good time. Folks, we're ready to get back to business whenever you could take your seats, please. I'm talking to you. Everyone, please retake your seats. Please don't make me regret giving you a break. Our presenters for the next item of business. Again, the Committee on Disability Rights, Jennifer Monthi. She's appearing virtually. Jennifer,
Would you like me to start?
I would.
We can't see anybody on our screen, so we're really talking. I'm Jennifer Monthi. I'm as I said, with the Disability Rights Committee. I'm joined by Allie Morris, who's our chair of the committee, and I apologize for having to speak to a vacant room because we can't see any of you. But we're here to talk about a report that the Disability Committee produced in response to concerns about a guardianship statute in New York State, the Surrogate Court Procedure Act, Article 17A. The committee has been working to examine this law for several years. Oh, I see a room now. Hello, everyone. The committee has been looking at this law for several years and concluded that it would be helpful if the New York State Bar Association had some positions related to guardianship. So the purpose of the report is to establish principles related to guardianship, and the report identifies 14 principles. And the reason why it does is because Article 17A is being examined for reform. The statute was passed in the 1960s and has stayed primarily the same since that period of time. And as policymakers, state legislators, courts, other advocates and interested parties consider reform to 17A, the committee felt it be important to reach consensus about the fundamentals of what's required in a guardianship statute. So the report identifies those principles and also identifies the concerns that the committee has related to the constitutional problems with the statute and the problems related to other civil rights laws, including the Americans with Disabilities law. The committee shared this report with other committees, and we believe that this is a position that the Bar Association can take without great dissent from the members, because it does lay out some fundamentals in what should be considered with any reform to a guardianship statute. I'm going to pause there just for one moment. I'm going to give Allie Morris, our chair, a moment if she would like to add anything to what I said, and then I will happily take questions if that's appropriate from the group.
Thank you, Jennifer. And thank you all. I have nothing to add. Thank you, Jennifer, for summarizing the background and why we're putting this forth. And thank you all for your time today.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Any online? No, thank you so much for your good
Thank you,
work
guys.
and for your presentation, and sorry we rushed you.
No, you didn't rush us. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks. Next, we have a report and recommendations of the New York City Bar Association, the constitutional cap proposal. Honorable Andrea Maisley and Ignatius Grande will present the report. It was previously presented to the House of Delegates on April 6th. At its meeting yesterday, the Executive Committee voted to approve the report and recommendations.
Hi, my name is Ignatius Grande. I'm a former chair of the Commercial and Federal Litigation Section. I'm here to present this report with Justice Maisley. Again, we're here asking for the approval of this. It's a New York City Bar Association report entitled "Repeal the Cap and Do the Math: Why We Need a Modern, Flexible, Evidence-Based Method of Assessing New York's Judicial Needs." I'm here presenting because I really do think this is an incredibly important issue that NYSBA should be supporting. As we all know, New York's court system is impossibly backlogged, and the state Supreme Court judges have insurmountably long dockets. The current system is out of date, and the cap on the number of judges prevented the legislature from adding additional judges to meet the growing need of certain districts and to bring our judicial system into the 21st century. As many of us know, our state's court system is oftentimes understaffed, And we believe this report sets forth a comprehensive solution to this problem. Justice Maisley.
Hi, good morning, everyone, and thanks for having us back. I'm Andrea Maisley. I'm a Supreme Court judge in New York County in the Commercial Division. I have been a civil court judge, a family court judge, a guardianship judge, and today I'm here to present and request your approval of the report. I want to thank the executive committee for approving the report yesterday. The report has two parts. The first part is to lift the cap. We're actually not going to talk about that part today because the State Bar already endorsed that part of our report years ago, 2017. And because the Assembly passed it on Thursday night. So good work, everyone. And thank you for all the hard work from this association and all the other organizations. So moving on to the math, which, by the way, if you watched the debate on Thursday night, you would have seen that the math part of this report was integral to the debate. And so what is the math? Well, basically, the legislature should have the information that it needs to do its job. And historically, the legislature has always had the job of deciding how many seats in each court there should be. The legislature also wants to know the number. At the Senate Judiciary Committee's hearing in the winter on family courts, the administrative judge for family courts was asked, how many judges do you need in family court statewide? And he was not able to answer that question. So we could begin doing the math immediately. But there would be no increase if it was called for by the numbers. There would be no increase in Supreme Court for those judicial districts that are already at the cap. However, family court, criminal court, civil court, surrogates court, if you do the math and you find that you need more judges, then you would be able to go to the legislature and lobby. And the legislature would know what that amount is. The bottom line is that families should not be waiting. I'm a former family court judge. So, families should not be waiting to resolve their cases of abuse, neglect, custody, and visitation. Same goes in matrimonial cases, and defendants in criminal court should not have to wait for trials because there are not enough judges. No one should have to wait because there are not enough judges. So who does the math? The chief administrative judge. Under the judiciary law, the chief administrative judge is already reporting annually lots of data. So we just seek to add one item, and that is how many judges are needed in each court. The slides. Oh, we're not doing slides.
Tell them they can move the slide back. So just say it to the.
Oh, okay. So we have the slide, which is the actually how to do it. That should be the next one. 34 states and the federal courts use a weighted caseload method. You take the number of cases pending, you apply a weight. The weight is based on how long it usually takes to resolve that kind of a case, and then divide by the time a judge has to work in a judge year, and it's done in minutes. The result is the number of judges you need to do the work. So OCA could do this analysis immediately. This is only a proposal for a mathematical formula to ensure that the legislature has the information it needs to allocate adequate judicial resources. It's aspirational. The budget is the cap on on how many judicial seats we have in all the other courts except for Supreme Court. The legislature may not have the budget to create the new seats that we calculate if we do the math. But that's always been their job to do, to figure out how many seats the budget will allow for. So if the calculation is done, we need more seats. but there isn't enough budget. There's not enough office space. There's not enough staff. There's other restrictions, then there will be no more seats. It's aspirational. So Ignatius. wants to
Yeah,
tell
if we
you
could
more.
just go to the last slide. Again, I'm here, the Commercial and Federal Litigation section has endorsed the report. We also have the support of NYSBA's Constitution Committee, the Young Lawyer section, the LGBTQ plus section, the Family Law section, and also the support of the leadership of the Women in Law section. These are some of the other endorsements of the report, the Acting Supreme Court Judges Association, the Fund for Modern Courts, NYCLA, and the New York State Trial Lawyers Association. And the report also has the support of the City Bar's Alternative Dispute Resolution Committee, Civil Court Committee, Criminal Courts Committee, and the State Courts of Superior Jurisdiction Committee. Again, I believe this report, has recommendations that would be beneficial across the court system, and I strongly encourage NYSBA to support the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Add one more thing before we take questions. I just want to recognize Michael Regan, who is one of the chairs of the Council on Judicial Administration, who from which committee this report came out of. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
Good morning. My
Good morning.
name is Tanya R. Kennedy. I'm an Associate Justice of the Appellate Division, First Department, and now the new chair, presiding member of the Judicial Section. In my first House of Delegates meeting, I wish to make two comments. The first, in my individual capacity. I have been on the bench now for 18 years. I sat in lower civil, lower criminal, family court. I've been the supervising judge of civil court, New York County, and acting supreme, and you know where I am now. And I certainly believe that justice delayed is justice denied. And as the new presiding member, many of you know me, Taya Grays, my colleague, Justice Maisley, also Ignatius. I believe in collaboration. So I am asking for the Council of Judicial Administration to reach out to me because I believe in partnership, collaboration, and communication. And I believe that in numbers, we work together. Now, my comments are in the capacity of my new position. I received late last night a letter from the Honorable Verna Saunders, who is the president of the Supreme Court Justices Association, State of New York. And she made me aware of this letter. It is a statement in opposition to a current bill that's proposed by Senator Holman Siegel. The Association of Justices of the Supreme Court of the State of New York, the Supreme Court Justices Association of the City of New York, the Judicial Friends Association, the Latino Judges Association, Board of Justices of the 12th Judicial District, Bronx County, Queens Supreme Court Justices Association, Brooklyn Board of Supreme Court Justices, and the Justices Association of Richmond County. And let me say that I'm here with the assisting presiding member, Justice Brian D. Burns, who certainly agreed that I should get up on us together just to note the letter. Let me say that this letter will be discussed at the June 14th Council of Judicial Association meeting. Certainly, we want to discuss this with President Napoletano and the Legislative Council, David Miranda. I think I'm going to close now, but let me just say this. I'm asking that this report, be tabled so that we can also have a discussion, because I don't believe that the Council of Judicial Associations was ever brought to the table. And if we're really gonna forward the rule of law, I'm asking that we be consulted and this be tabled until after that June 14th meeting when we can all come together. If I'm out of line, I apologize it. Blame it on my newness.
No,
Thank you.
Judge, thank you for your comments. A motion to table is a procedural motion that will be considered at the end of the discussion, so you may have to get up again. And then a motion to table will go directly to a vote, but for now, we're still hearing from others. Thank you.
Thank you, Justice Kennedy.
Morning. Carl Mann, I'm a new delegate from the 5th District, Herkimer County. And I just have a question whether consideration was given to ensuring that every county have at least one resident Supreme Court justice. We now have one after a decade without. Thank you.
Thank you for that suggestion. I urge you to look at the report and all the factors that are, we recommend be considered. And that bill, to do the math, as I said, was considered and was discussed. It's been introduced in the legislature, not going forward this year, but we expect it to be considered again next year. And that is one of the factors that we recommend be considered. So thank you for that.
I'm going to recognize Mr. Cohen first, and then we have a question online.
Sure. My name is David Cohen. I'm a vice president from the 11th Judicial District. I'm a member of the Executive Committee, and I'm a past chair of the Criminal Justice Section. While I sympathize and support the report, I think it's missing a very important element, because in addition to that mathematical formula as to the number of judges, it doesn't stress the facilities that are necessary for these judges. It doesn't stress the staff that's needed for these judges, because one of the major factors in delay in the courts, especially in the city of New York, is we don't have enough courtrooms and we don't have enough court officers to open those courtrooms. I can tell you anecdotally that there are many times when you go to court and you have a judge on the bench and a court reporter and lawyers, and you don't have a clerk, or you don't have enough court officers to man that courtroom, and that creates an incredible delay. So I would ask that in addition to a number of judges, that we focus on what it's going to cost and what facilities are going to be needed to give those judges proper places to work. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you like to respond?
Just to say thank you for the comment, and just to echo Assemblyman Borres from Thursday night, this is a first step, and the next step is a hard one, which is to consider all these factors, the office space, the court officers, the staff, the supplies, the computers, the insurance, all of that. That's the next step. Thank you.
Thank you. We have an online. Who is that?
Thank
Leslie?
you.
Leslie, go
Yes.
ahead.
Thank you. My name is Leslie Treff. I'm the vice chair of the LGBTQ plus law section, and I speak on behalf of the section in support, and me personally, as someone who's retired from the courts in Manhattan and a longtime OCA employee, as well as someone who now practices in the lower courts in New York City. I'm very much in support of this. I have witnessed quite a bit of backlog and acting supremes that have been in New York County as well as other counties in New York City. And I know, having practiced now, that this is taking judges away from the lower courts. My clients have waited for a very long time for justice in situations that they should not, in dangerous situations, because there aren't enough judges in the lower courts. So I know that we're trying to take care of the removing the cap, and I hope that that will happen. It's a constitutional issue, but this is an issue where OCA and whoever really needs to have the information to give the legislature to be able to move judges around if necessary, have judges in all the courts. I heard a comment already about the Supreme Court. Of course, there should be at least one Supreme Court judge in each county. But this is something OCA should be adding. And I think the actual formula is, whatever they use is great if it's a reasonable thing, but we've got to do something to increase justice for the litigants. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And yeah, and just to follow up on that and the previous question, I think there is the question of if there are more judges, the resources, but at the same time, part of this whole formula or the whole current situation, the number of acting Supreme Court justices that then take from other courts. So that's something that, really the way that's set up has almost been a Band-Aid to this cap, which had been put in place in the 1800s. And the aim here is to have a solution that will not only benefit the state Supreme Court, but also those other courts that have lost judges who are now acting Supreme Court justices.
Thank you.
Hi, Adrienne Koch, President of the New York County Lawyers Association. As you will have seen from reading the report, NYCLA's board already endorsed the report. I'm happy to say that that is the official position of NYCLA. I'd like to add a few things on my own behalf. First, I really want to commend the City Bar and its Council on Judicial Administration for this tremendously thoughtful and well-researched report. Yes, it is true that there will be other things we need to do once we figure out how many judges we need, but we need to figure out how many judges we need before we can start thinking about how to do those other things. And that first step is important, and it is urgent. The problems that this report describes in some of our courts are simply not befitting our great state, and they cast our justice system in a light that is exactly the opposite of what we should want for it. I want to add just one other thing that I think impacts us particularly in New York County, which is one of the things the report points out on page 34 is that back in the 1980s, our state legislature amended the General Obligations Law to permit contracts and transactions over a certain value to select New York as the forum for resolution of disputes, regardless of whether there's any other connection to New York. That was a policy decision made by our legislature in order to try to encourage people to use our court system and thereby bring commerce here into our courts. Great. And it's good for our city, especially because they come to New York City by and large when they come. But to do that and then not ensure that there are enough judges, and then you're going to measure the number of judges by the number of human beings who happen to live in the county when you have invited all these people from elsewhere to bring their disputes here. That's like inviting a bunch of people to dinner and then not having any food for them. We really urgently need to do this, and I really urge this association to adopt and endorse this report. Thank you.
Thank you. For the information of the House, I would only add that this report and recommendations were submitted at the last meeting and tabled to today. And I just want that to be confirmed for the benefit of new members. We have another question online. Mohammed, go ahead.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Morning. Hi, I'm Mohammed Faridi. I'm the incoming president or the new president of the New York City Bar Association. And this report is a priority of our Bar Association. I want to thank Justice Maisley and Ignatius and the Council on Judicial Administration at the City Bar for putting together this very comprehensive report. I do want to respond to the notion very briefly that this report is opposed by a couple of associations, particularly the Association of Elected Supreme Court Justices. We are happy to consider any concerns that particular association or any other association or group has, and we are willing and ready to work with them to address any issues that they raise. That discussion can continue after this session. We'll make ourselves available over the summer and do the hard work. I do want to note that Justice Maisley herself is an elected Supreme Court Justice. She is one of the chief authors of the report. So this report is supported by many judges, elected and acting Supreme Court justices. It's prepared by our Council on Judicial Administration that includes members from many committees. It includes members from the Judiciary Committee, the State Courts of Superior Jurisdiction Committee, the Federal Courts Committee, the Civil Courts Committee, the Criminal Courts Committee, and the Litigation Committee, and many other experienced court practitioners, administrators, and judges. And this report also has the support of NICLA, as we just heard, as well as many of the other affinity bar associations throughout the city and the state, including the Asian American Bar Association of New York, the Caribbean Attorneys Network, the Filipino American Lawyers Association of New York, the Haitian American Lawyers Association of New York, the Korean American Lawyers Association of Greater New York, the LGBT Bar Association of Greater New York, the Muslim Bar Association of New York, and many other organizations. Again, we're happy to consider any concerns that any association or group that has on the report. We're willing to sit down with them in the next coming week and next coming months, but it is important for this report, in my view, to be adopted by the State Bar Association. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions of the presenters? All right, may I have a motion to approve the report and recommendations? Is there a second? Are there any other procedural motions on the matter?
I move that the vote be abstained. I'm new, so I need help.
Well, you can
Move
abstain, but we would have to consider a motion to table.
To table. That's what I meant to say. Thank you so much.
Okay, all right.
Appreciate you.
Thank you. And on a motion to table, we need a second, if there is one. And that proceeds directly to a vote. So the motion is to table the report and recommendations to the next meeting. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Online? They have 9 more seconds. The motion to table fails. Back to the motion to approve the report and recommendations. All in favor? Oh, wait, I need a second. Or first, I need a motion. Do I have a motion to approve the report and recommendations? And a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion carries.
Thank you.
Oh, online people.
Oh, yeah.
Uh-oh.
Still online.
Uh-oh.
And now the motion carries. I promise I'll get the hang of this. Next is a report and recommendations from the Task Force on the Treatment of Transgender Youth in Sports. Co-chair of the task force, Jacqueline Drohan, will present the report of the task force.
Good morning again. Thank you for your time. Okay, I am Jacqueline Drohan. I'm a shiny new member of the executive committee. As of yesterday, I serve NISBA on the finance committee, and I also serve on the litigation amicus committee for the LGBTQ plus law section. When this task force was originally formed, President Brown came to me in 2020, and he said, "Jackie, what's this sort of cutting edge issue? You know, there's been a long line of chances and like opportunities that the association has taken to support people, like LGBTQ people and LGBTQ rights." But he said in 2020, "What's the next thing coming? What, in your estimation, is the next important matter that the association should take a stance on?" And at that time I said, well, having coached kids, as a transgender person myself who's played sports, I said, I'm feeling this uncomfortable focus upon trans kids in sports. Weirdly, at that time, there was not as much focus on adult competitive sports as has come into focus in the last 3 to 4 years. At that time, there were only 2 states even considering legislation that would restrict the rights of trans kids to play sports. In the time since we created the task force, there are 250 pieces of legislation. It's been an absolute landslide of state legislation and executive moves to restrict the rights of kids. And when we formed the task force, it was my hope that we could bring in a complete diversity of political opinion from across the state. One of the things I like most about the bar is we have Western New York, we've got downstate, we've got upstate, we've got large firm, we've got small firm. And there's a lot of political diversity that is sort of wired into that fact. But we're all attorneys. We can all speak inspired by the facts. We can hopefully cleanse our legal analysis from political, overlay long enough to have an intelligent discussion. And that has come true. In fact, the only forum that I'm able to have an objective discussion about these in the current political climate is right here. It's with my professional attorney colleagues, which I think highlights why it is so important for bar associations like ours to take a position on these important matters. So I'm here coming to you today during Pride Month, and I am as alarmed as I've been since the beginning of this. As quickly as this matter has been moving politically in the country, the task force has unfortunately moved a little slow. I'm recovering from a very bad bout with cancer that took me completely out of the game during 2022. Knock on wood, right now I'm in pretty good shape. But with what's going on in the country right now, I'm feeling a really alarming sense of urgency, on this bill. We are as the chair of the litigation amicus committee of the LGBTQ section, we've drafted, and with the assistance and collaboration of a number of members, we've drafted briefs in a number of cases, and we also addressed this House, I think about 2 years ago now, to successfully solicited support of House Rule, like HR 5, which basically extended equal protection rights to people based on their gender identity. So in keeping with that position that NISBA's taken, there could be no more important time, I think, to pass this bill, to show our colors before the slew of litigation and briefing that we may have to participate in for SCOTUS. I was at the Women's Bar Association in Saratoga last week. They have committees. They are, in support of this. I was a little ashamed that they seem to be moving even more quickly than NISBA was, but again, I take part of the blame on that for sure. Just to sort of touch upon this as well, again, kids as many of us are, members of marginalized groups, there frequently comes a time when you feel like, oh, that train is never late. Where next? Something's coming. I'm sure that the Romani people felt that in Europe in 1930. I'm sure that a lot of the LGBT community is feeling it now in certain parts of the world, Russia included. Trans kids can't defend themselves. And again, through a process of compromise, a process of collaboration with a lot of my colleagues on the committee, the one commonality on the task force are people who have experience at this. We've had people from a lot of different positions on the political spectrum, but have participated, for example, in the International Olympic Committee standards on steroids, have coached kids, have actually medaled in competitive sports, cis and trans. And the one commonality is they understood what was going on. The report presents two classes of resources and two classes of information. It's important not to conflate them. One source is the statistical information, okay? The statistical information that we found after a hard look over time indicates that this is not a problem in search of a solution, it's a solution in search of a problem. Okay, trans people represent 1% of the population generally. Okay, a very small percentage of them are kids that want to play sports in school. All right, it's a rare bird. All right, so what I would urge my fellow members to do is to look carefully at the facts, look at what we've cited, and make up your own minds regarding that. The other class of evidence is clinical evidence, medical evidence, of which there is almost none. And that's all the report, that's the only conclusion the report comes to, right? Is that there's not enough evidence to make a clinical determination, but that on an event-by-event, case-by-case basis, as is being done in the NCAA and in the Olympic level, again, not the focus of the report, but there's a diversity of results even in those clinical reports. In fact, there was a recent one that we didn't include from the British Journal of Medicine that indicated that in some events, trans women were weaker and less competitive than cisgender women, certain events. So that's contrary to our, intuition. And I understand this entire thing can be counterintuitive to people who you may not know anyone who's trans, you haven't spent any time with them, certainly not have coached them. I mean, I'm trans and a coach, and I've never coached a trans person, all right? The idea that there could be a transgender league, okay, Brown versus Board of Education aside, there's not enough of us in the state to make up a team, let alone a league of our own, okay? And the idea to force trans people into playing, in the single sex team of, the birth gender assigned at birth is essentially saying, well, trans isn't real, is it? It's not a real thing, right? Like, for example, it would be like saying, what is Kwanzaa? What is, Eid al-Fitr? We have Christmas and Hanukkah, pick a team, right? That's essentially what you're trying to say. If that's what you say. So we're at a point that there's some criticality here. Okay, the report was long in coming for a lot of reasons, but I would just close by saying, please keep one thing in mind carefully. You do not have to take a position here on adult competitive sports. You do not have to take a position here on college scholarships, right? I mean, I could speak to that, if you want to. We searched hard. We couldn't find a single case of like an openly transgendered college person receiving a scholarship. Maybe it's occurring. We spoke to coaches that didn't think it would occur. But whatever your concern is, this report, the recommendations voting on today during this Pride Month, are about kids. They're about the right of kids to be included, kids that are at risk, kids that are already suffering massive amounts of harassment, high school dropout rates, self-harm, including suicide. If you care about kids, care about all the kids. I will have a collegial chat with anyone who cares about all the kids. I care about little girls' sports. I had 2 little girls who played sports. I had 2 little girls that I coached in sports. I care enormously about women's sports, right? But we need to care about all the kids and the enormously positive impact that sports participation can have upon trans kids, and the enormously negative impact for their caretakers and their teachers and their school custodians to turn on them politically to target them, right? So please feel a sense of urgency. Please put us on the right side of history as an association, and please do it now. And with that, I would close and address questions.
Thank you. At its meeting yesterday, the executive committee voted to approve the report and recommendations of the task force. May I have a motion to approve the report and recommendations? Is there a second? And I see there is discussion. Past President Madigan.
Thank you. I'm a former both high school and collegiate athlete and coach. So this is very dear to me. And as the president who created the LGBT People in the Law Committee and was so proud that it became a section, I feel like I've got a real sense of ownership in this issue. But for those who know me well, I'm a process person. And ordinarily, when we have a report that's going to be considered at a House of Delegates meeting, those reports are supposed to go out to the sections and committees, the constituent sections and committees, 75 days before the meeting at which it's going to be presented, so that we have adequate opportunity for all those sections and committees to weigh in. And I understand in this circumstance, that 75-day requirement was waived. So there was only a 30-day timeframe within which our committees and sections could weigh in. And while I recognize a sense of urgency, this was a committee that was created a number of years ago. And I am concerned about the fact we haven't heard from the Committee on Children and the Law, or the Committee on Civil Rights, or the DEI committee. It wasn't even on their radar. So I think we all deserve to hear from those constituent groups and other sections about this proposal. I'd also like to see a more pro-con kind of analysis as well. I think that would be helpful as we debate this. But because the usual process wasn't followed and we are missing a lot of very important voices here, I am going to reluctantly but fervently move to table this until the next meeting, so that our sections and committees do indeed have an opportunity to weigh in, and that we can fully consider the report at our November meeting.
Thank you. If you would just hold off on your procedural motion until we've had any further discussion. And I can confirm that the 75-day rule was waived by leadership, as mentioned by past President Madigan. We have a question online. Leslie.
Yes, still Leslie Treff. I'm still the vice chair of the LGBTQ law section, and I'm rising sort of in support of the task force report. First, I'll say that we're very proud of Jackie to be leading that group, and I think this is an urgent matter. We're talking about legislation that is due to be passed all over this country prior to November, which is what I think was just suggested. And I think there was plenty of time to read this report. And this is an urgent matter. It's not something that can wait. So I'm urging the House of Delegates to consider that and consider what Mr. Drohan has said, and to support the report and to approve it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark Alcott, past president Mark Alcott, online. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning. Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a question. I mean no disrespect in asking it, and it may reflect my lack of full knowledge of the subject, but the phrase or term transgender girl as used in this report, and which is the focus of the report, does it refer to someone who was born male and identifies as a woman, identifies as a girl, but and perhaps has dresses as a girl and has adapted a girl's name, but has not had any medical treatment to cause that person to transgender, or is it confined to those who have had such medical treatment? Is my question clear?
I think so, but I'll ask the presenter if she would like to respond.
Yeah, that is clear, and you're essentially correct. Although I would just make a couple of points. One, yeah, a trans girl is a girl who was assigned male at birth. Whether or not medical intervention has occurred is very much dependent upon the person. I will say there is a remarkable exaggeration of the amount, especially of the amount of irreversible medical intervention done in kids below 17. There's a perception that kids are being cut up and they're having, like surgery and stuff like that. No medical care standards would allow that in the US. There are some cases that hormone or puberty blockers are provided to kids. Those cases themselves are actually fewer than is being represented. So if you're talking about, for example, a 9 or 10-year-old, I can almost guarantee no medical transition has occurred or started. If you're talking about a 16-year-old, it may or may not have.
So I'm sorry, just to be absolutely clear, a boy who is in all ways physically, biologically, anatomically a boy, but who identifies as a girl would be, under this report, permitted to play on the girls' team, maybe even required to play on the girls' team, but at least permitted to play on the girls' team. That's your recommendation, am I right?
Well, yes, and that is the existing law in New York State and a number of other states.
All right.
There are states that are actually criminalizing that decision on the part of kids as well as their caretakers in 25 states at the moment.
I'm just interested in what it is that your committee
Sure.
is recommending.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Ms. Koch.
Hello again, Adrienne Koch, still by the grace of God, president of the New York County Lawyers Association, also the proud parent of a transgender daughter. But at this moment, I speak in neither of those capacities, but simply as an individual member of this House. The kinds of legislation that this report speaks out against are based on a multi-layered assumption. The assumption is that someone who is biologically male, whatever that means, will have an unfair advantage in sports over someone who is biologically female, whatever that means. And that is true even if this biologically male person is a trans person, and even if this trans person is someone who began identifying as trans as young as K through 12. That assumption is so multi-layered that without rigorous testing, it should not be the basis for anything, let alone legislation that has the effect of excluding children from sports, let alone legislation that has that effect on children who are already marginalized and vulnerable. This association should without hesitation adopt this report in Pride Month, please. Thank you.
Thank you. We have online past president Sherry Levin-Wallach.
Thank you and good morning. Sherry Levin-Wallach, past president of the association. I speak in support of this report. And I think it is incredibly important to think about the breadth of this report and the importance of this report and the impact that it's having on our children. And when I say our children, I mean all of our children. My children have many friends who identify as transgender or as other than their birth sex. I have friends who have children who I know who are transgender, and I've seen the difficulties and the social implications and the danger that this puts on those individuals, both emotionally and physically. I think that this is incredibly important for this association. We need to move forward into our future. We need to respect each other, and we need equality for everyone. And that includes our children who are growing and choosing to live their life in the manner that they feel most comfortable. I urge the adoption of this report, especially during Pride Month.
Thank you, past President Wallach. Any other discussion? I'm sorry?
Just looking for clarification, Kate Madigan again. I heard you say that children in New York State who are transgender are already protected under New York law. Did I understand that correctly? That here in New York State, our children are protected?
So yes, that is true, although there are local measures even in New York State that are being put forward. Nassau County, Manhattan School Board has not successfully, but they are pushing forward local measures to try to restrict trans kids' participation.
But the law right now does protect our children here in New York.
In the state of New York?
Yeah.
I'll give you a qualified yes.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, excuse me, please. Hold on. Take the microphone, please. Identify yourself. Thank you.
I'm Barry Skidelsky, Scorpio. So I'm wondering about what I would consider preemption. If we have state laws, how is it that local counties or municipalities are trying to advance legislation that might conflict?
Well, yeah, I mean, you're exactly correct. The New York ACLU has filed suit. Governor Hochul has done measures to try. I mean, I think a lot of these things were, I hate to say it, that they were done for political showmanship. There are some Republican counties, Staten Island, Nassau, et cetera. But the interesting thing about it, I'll just say very, very quickly, is when the Nassau County president was, at the press conference where he actually announced this measure, he was asked to give one example. Could he name one example of a trans kid or a trans athlete that was harassing the girls' team or causing the type of problem that the bill was meant to prevent? And he could not, right? He could not do so. So a lot of these are based purely on thought experiment, purely on attractive notions of politics, right? And it's done for the political base.
Thank you. For clarification, could you just restate what the ask of the House is, the proposed resolution? I believe it's at the end of the report.
I actually came up without my report, but maybe the president has got it in front of him. I just want to make sure we get it word for word.
I can just say it.
Okay.
The proposed resolution is, be it resolved that the New York State Bar Association opposes and urges the repeal and/or judicial invalidation of all discriminatory legislation and regulation targeting transgender, non-binary, and intersex youth, and infringing their equal right to unrestricted participation in school sports programs appropriate to the gender in which they live, in full equality and on the same terms with students assigned such gender at birth. Is that it?
Yes. And then there the
Then it, okay.
resolution 2, yeah.
Then there's a list of the state laws that the task force designates as discriminatory and asks the New York State Bar Association to oppose. Is that fair?
Right, and then those are, to be fair, those are laws in states outside of New York, so we're taking a position on those. And then the resolution 2 refers to federal laws that directly impact our state potentially.
All
And
right,
that
thank
would,
you.
as Barry said, would potentially override New York state law.
Thank you. We have one late breaking participant. Yes, go ahead. Oh, your mic, now it's on.
Yeah, so I'm breaking my rule as I just told my delegation here that my rule in new meetings is to listen and not speak.
Can you just state who you are?
Yes, my name is Karen Nicholson and I'm a new member of this body. I'm happy to be here from the 8th Judicial District. I guess I just don't understand how this resolution is so controversial other than the rhetoric around the issue, right? To me, as a member of this body, how can we not take a position against discrimination? You know, my daughter is cisgender, but she is a part of the LGBTQ community. And I remember so vividly when New York State allowed marriage equality and everybody thought the end of the world was coming and it didn't, right? So there's a lot of rhetoric, there's a lot of emotion around this issue, but I will also just quickly say, in addition to supporting all the comments that are made, this is an issue that is going to make or break future membership. Because my daughter, as a newly admitted attorney, would not be a member of this body if this body didn't vote for this resolution. And I will tell you that most of the people in her graduating class feel the same way. Thank you.
Thank you, past president. Past President Andrew Brown.
Madam Chair, Andrew Brown, past president. I had the honor of creating the task force and asking Jackie to chair it. There's a question of whether or not there's true urgency here. Of course there's true urgency. There was true urgency around this issue when I created the task force years ago. Since then, countless bills have been enacted, regulations have been put in place to further discriminate against these kids. These are kids. These kids cannot speak for themselves. We're not talking about passing this resolution on behalf of adults. Keep that in mind. I know some of us have strong feelings about whether adults should be allowed to participate in competitive sports. That's an issue for another day. That's not what we're talking about here. If we table this today, I guarantee you, between now and when this comes back before us, there will be countless other pieces of legislation that have been put in place and passed. We'll be further behind the 8 ball. I strongly and strenuously ask this body to get behind this good work and pass this measure here before us today.
Thank you. We have one more online, past President Vincent Doyle. Vinny?
Yes, good morning. Can you hear me?
We can, thank you.
Okay, good morning. Vincent Doyle, past president and from the 8th District. And I want to congratulate the group that worked on this and the chair for an excellent presentation. Reluctantly, well, I'm never reluctant to agree with my colleague Kate Madigan. I do speak in support of the motion that she will be making to table. The reports that come before this body benefit from the period of time that is given for different groups to make comments. They're often changed, modified, the recommendations are improved, and the abbreviated schedule for this has not allowed that process to occur. And I'm particularly concerned by the proposed resolution and the second paragraph of the proposed resolution that has a list of 25 laws from different states that it condemns. I don't pretend to be an expert in the laws of any of these states. I haven't read any of these laws. And I'm very reluctant to have the House of Delegates of the New York State Bar Association comment on all of these states' laws and condemn them. I am against discrimination. I am against this form of discrimination, but I don't think we should be commenting on these state laws, which I would hazard to guess most of the people in the House of Delegates have not even laid eyes on. So when Kate makes her motion to table this, I will second it. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you like to comment in response, not to the anticipated motion, but in response to Mr. Doyle's?
Yeah, so, yeah, I mean, I can certainly, so, I mean, we, you know, as I said, I did a mea culpa on the delay in presenting the report when I started, and, you know, there were very real reasons for it. To be fair, we have had comment back. We have circulated to, I believe, all the sections that Kate mentioned. We have, but she is correct, we have not received comment back from a majority of them. The LGBTQ law section, I think there's a letter of support for it. It's enclosed in your packet. I would just say, you know, it's a 20-page report. It's a framed issue. There are hot links to each state legislation, to their plain language and commentary there if you want. And keep in mind, we're just putting forward a request for a general for the association effectively not to be the last New York Bar Association to take a position generally opposed to discrimination against trans kids to the extent that's expressed in those laws. More importantly to me would be Resolution 2. The federal laws directly affect us and could preempt our state's the state protections currently in place.
Thank you. I think we have one more online. Mr. Jaglom?
Thank you. Drew Jaglom. I'm a member of the Executive Committee and of the Finance Committee and a former chair of the Business Law and International sections. But I speak as a former youth coach in a number of sports, of both boys and girls, and as the parent of a young woman who would not be the person she is today were it not for her participation in elementary, high school, and college sports. There are immense benefits to children, and especially to women, and I would assume to trans people, from the opportunity to participate in youth sports. I haven't had the privilege of coaching a trans athlete, but I've seen what it does to help the confidence of girls who often are not given the opportunity to shine the way they do. When you look at K through 12 athletes, there are vast disparities in their speed, size, and abilities. The best soccer player I ever coached left my girls' team to go to a boys' team because she was too good and too fast, and she dominated the boys in the same way that she had dominated the girls. Given the very small number of trans athletes there are, any impact on competition that there may be from a trans girl who has some physical advantages is going to be trivial compared to the harm that will result from depriving these kids from the opportunity to participate. And given the pace with which the discriminatory laws are being enacted, we should not wait. And with all due respect to Kate and Vinny, there were some unfortunate but good reasons for the delay. I have not heard from any sections or committees that they object to this going forward, because they have not had the opportunity to comment. And it's an urgent matter that we should act on now. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we've had the discussion on the issue, And, yes, ma'am.
On my point of order, were the committees included in the distribution of this report preliminarily, specifically the Committee on Children in the Law, Civil Rights, and the Committee on Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion? Because at our breakfast this morning, I learned that it's not even on their radar. So apparently the committees did not receive this report. And I just want to confirm whether or not it was sent just to the sections in the 30-day timeframe, or was it also sent to the committees?
I cannot speak to that. If you have a motion to make, proceed, but I think that's the third time you've spoken in the context of discussion, and I respect your position as a past president, but if you have a procedural motion to make, please make it.
I do, thank you, Madam Chair. Just want to remind all of us, we are a New York bar. We represent New York lawyers, and we do weigh in on national issues. We usually do so through the American Bar Association. So that should be considered by, I think, by the committee. In any event, I moved to table because I don't think the case has been made for urgency. This was created by our used president, Andrew Brown, and it went through Sherry Wallach's administration and more recently Dick Lewis's administration. And we still haven't noticed major committees within our association. Those are important voices. We are the policymaking body of the association, and we rely on their expertise. Our process is clear. It wasn't followed here, and we should follow the process to ensure that all those voices are to be heard. So I move that we table the motion until our November meeting.
Just have a point of order. There was a process that was followed. The 75-day procedure was waived by leadership within the rules. So we have a motion to table. Is there a second? All right, we're going to move straight to a vote on the motion to table. All in favor? All opposed? Online, hold on. The motion to, yes, we had some abstentions in the room. Those will be recorded. Do we have abstentions online? Okay, those are also recorded. So I can call the vote and the motion fails. Next, moving on to the motion. Do I have a motion in favor of adopting the report and recommendations? And a second. All in favor? All opposed? Online? Do you have any abstentions in the room?
Next.
Three abstentions in the room, 3 online, but the motion carries.
Genuinely appreciated on my behalf, the behalf of the task force and behalf of all the kids at stake. Thank you so much, everybody.
For those in the room who abstain from any particular vote, please be sure to record your abstention by sending an email to Melissa O'Clair, as I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting. Thank you. The next item on the agenda was the report of the Committee on Annual Awards, but that has been deferred. So the next item, which we will take up, is the report of the foundation. The Honorable Cheryl Chambers will present the report.
Good morning, everyone. And I speak loudly, right? That's what my husband says. Let's go with slide 1. I am very honored to address this House of Delegates as your new president of the New York Bar Foundation. For the past 3 years, I've served as vice president of the foundation after having served 7 years on its board of directors. I hope that I'm not a stranger to any of you in this house, having served in this house for over 20 years. So I'm going to tell you, I graduated from law school early and I started here when I was 14. I look forward to partnering with David Shraver, who is the new vice president of the foundation. Dave, would you give them a royal rave? And the other board members and staff to advance the mission of the foundation at this critical time in our nation's history. Since the foundation was established in 1950, as the philanthropic arm of the New York State Bar Association, its core purpose of investing in projects and programs which advance legal research and education, improve the administration of justice, and promote the bar's service to the public have remained the same. The work may have evolved, but its purpose has remained the same. You will agree with me that attorneys and judges have a special role in our society. We have a position of influence and privilege. And with that privilege, we also have professional responsibility to uphold justice and fairness in our society. Over the past 7 decades, the foundation has been the association's hallmark of our commitment to advance justice by investing in ideas, individuals, organizations, and institutions that will effectively advance social justice. Engaging in philanthropy allows us to address justice issues and identify grant-making solutions across New York State to drive positive change and hopefully reduce injustice. It also demonstrates that attorneys and judges are committed to serving the public good. To put it simply, we're not greedy, manipulative, and unethical. Well, maybe some of us are, but present company excluded. Today, I'd like to give you a quick snapshot of our grant-making program, followed by an update on the foundation's fundraising campaign. I'll delve a little deeper into the foundation's grant-making program at our October House meeting. The next slide, please. The foundation provides grants for a range of organizations. In 2024, we awarded 97 grants totaling more than $650,000 to nonprofit organizations, including legal aid programs across the state, as well as to the New York Bar Foundation and other local bar associations. The foundation also provides support to emerging legal leaders so that they can do their best work, which brings me to the Catalyst program. Next slide. As you may know, the Catalyst Public Service Fellow, oh my God, today I don't know why I'm stumbling on my words. As you may know, the Catalyst Public Service Fellowship Program was launched in January of 2016 with a donation of unused campaign funds from Janet DeFiore's district attorney campaign prior to her appointment as the chief judge. The initiative is designed to offer practical experience to public sector first-year law students who may not have had access to these opportunities. The foundation administers that program. This year, the Catalyst program offered 60 first-year law students from all 15 New York law schools a summer law fellowship, experiential learning, networking opportunities, helping them to develop their legal skills. You can skip the next slide and go to the next one. Okay. So, next slide. Okay, that's the one. Then, so this slide captures the incredible opportunity offered by the Catalyst program, a workshop at the New York Court of Appeals, led by Chief Judge Rowan Wilson and Associate Judges Michael Garcia and Madeline Singers. Imagine of being a first-year law student having an intimate conversation with these highly respected jurists about their experience. Next slide. In addition, the foundation supports 111 students with over $260,000 in fellowships and scholarships across diverse legal fields, including intellectual property, antitrust, health, and public interest law, many established in partnership with state bar sections. These funding programs give students opportunities and tools that they need to empower the next generation of legal leaders to do their best work. Next slide. As you are aware, in October of 2023, the foundation launched a comprehensive campaign raising funds to increase our grants program, sustain our mission, and expand our scholarship and fellowship programs. Next slide. The foundation has recruited 16 campaign leaders, and the ones you can see the ones that are listed on this slide, who are providing strategic guidance to the overall campaign and who will all oversee our campaign subcommittees. I am grateful for their leadership and commitment to the foundation's vision. We will be recruiting a few more leaders, so if we call, don't hang up, Michael McNamara. The campaign has been very successful thus far. I am pleased to share that we have secured 21% of our goal because of the generosity of 23 donors. Next slide. Not only that, but 72% of our donors have made their largest financial commitment to the foundation to date. And our average leadership gift is almost $123,000. That warrants an applause. Additionally, 3 donors have made bequest intentions, and we have established a new name fund, the Wackler Fund, that will support veterinarian advocacy. I'm telling you, I don't know what happened. I need some water, I think. The Wackler Fund is a testament to the philanthropic spirit of former Chief Judge Saul Wackler and his daughter, Lauren Wackler. Lauren is not only a stalwart member of ComFed and other sections, but is also vice chair of the fellows. Next slide. As I mentioned earlier, we are currently forming campaign subcommittees who will help us expand our reach. The subcommittees are constituted to ensure that every member has the opportunity to learn more about the important work of the foundation and support the campaign priority of their choice. We will also be seeking support from law firms from across the state. Next slide. We are also staring down. Is that the next slide? Okay. Oh, no. Thank you. Now it's the next slide. We're also staring down on the eve of our 75th anniversary. As mentioned earlier, the New York Bar Foundation was established in 1950 as the philanthropic arm of the New York State Bar Association. We have made enormous impact across the state as it relates to social justice issues, strengthening the profession, promoting democratic values, and advancing the rule of law. Our mission is just as relevant today as it was 75 years ago. We know firsthand that too many underserved communities and historically excluded New Yorkers still can't access justice they deserve. Far too many families remain in danger of losing their homes or endure unsafe housing conditions. Too many people need legal assistance to escape domestic violence and human trafficking. Too many New Yorkers face barriers when seeking health care, disability assistance, and the veterans benefits they deserve. And most importantly, our nation is experiencing major forms of democratic erosion, and the health of our democracy is teetering on the edge. Jacqueline Drohan said this when she was up here, and she said she was feeling a sense of urgency. And I feel the same way too. So today, as we contemplate our 75th anniversary, we must double down to do our part. Philanthropy, oh my God,
Philanthropically.
Philanthropy. Thank you. That's what I asked for. Nobody, I'm certainly not in my courtroom. Philanthropy must stand firm along with our unwavering commitment to a just and inclusive democracy. Our campaign presents an opportunity to expand our impact and ensure that the foundation remains strong for another 75 plus years, because our communities need help. I invite you to consider how you can help us double the amount of New Yorkers served annually and increase the amount of scholarships and fellowships awarded to emerging leaders. Next slide. You are an important part of our path forward. You can do that by attending our events to learn more about the foundation and its impact, thinking about how you and your firm can become involved, and meeting with foundation leaders, staff, our fellows, and volunteers to learn more about the foundation's campaign. Last slide. Thank you for your support. I will be back in October with more news and hopefully not a dry mouth. And I look forward to sharing the news of the foundation with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge. The report is accepted with the thanks of the House. Next, we have some administrative items. Two concerning the Finance Committee and the Audit Committee. We, at the House, must ratify the appointments to the Finance Committee and appointments to the Audit Committee. Pursuant to the bylaws, the House must ratify appointments to these committees after confirmation by the Executive Committee. President Domenick Napoletano has appointed Robert T. Schofield IV, the Honorable Cheryl Chambers, and Michael McNamara as members, each to serve a 2-year term, and these appointments were confirmed by the Executive Committee yesterday. May I have a motion to ratify these appointments? And a second? Is there any discussion? There being no discussion, we will now take a vote. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. The motion passes. Next, the bylaws also require that the House ratify appointments to the Audit Committee that were made by President Domenick Napoletano, who appointed Marnie Onderdonk and Honorable Barry Kamens. The Executive Committee confirmed those appointments yesterday as well. May I have a motion to ratify those appointments? And a second? Is there any discussion? There being none, we will now take a vote. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. Oops, we have online. I skipped right past that again. Sorry. Overwhelmingly, those motions pass. The Audit Committee, yes. Is there any new business? Yes.
I'll be quick because I know we're early, but so we got a few seconds to kill. Peter Levy, elected delegate from the 10th. I've been coming to these House meetings for close to 30 years. And almost yearly, we talk about diversity. We've talked about diversity in the corporate setting, in the courtroom, on the bench, in leadership, and in this House. And for 30 years coming to these meetings, I looked around the room and the room had been a lot of people like I am right now, old white guys. But today, for the first time in almost 30 years, I've looked around this room and it is different. I don't know why. I can't see the people that are online, but I see the 100 or so people that are sitting in this room. And I'm proud to say that this room this morning is diverse. And we should all be thankful. We should all be proud that we got here, and let's keep it here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for those remarks, and I think we owe a debt of gratitude in that regard to our past leadership. The date and place of the next meeting. It will be at the Bar Center in Albany or remote, and that will be on Saturday, November 2nd. There has been initial reports of a different day, but that has been changed and now confirmed for Saturday, November 2nd. So if you have it in your electronic calendars for a different date, go in there now and change it. Do I have a motion to adjourn? And a second? All in favor? Any opposed? Wait, we have the online people to consider. All right, thank you very much, everyone.